at this given point of time, as we speak, we are being joined by Melissa Weiss, journalist joining us from Tel Aviv. Melissa, thank you for speaking to us on India Today. Let us quickly understand the situation right now. The Israeli government has come out to already issue a notification of state of emergency. Civilians have been told that airspaces have been shut down, schools have been shut down, people have been instructed to work from home as we see this preemptive strike take place in Tehran. What are you understanding from the ground reality at this point of time?
Sure. Well, this is something that here in Israel has been a question of when, not if. And so when the sirens sounded across the country about 25 minutes ago, notifying the 9 million people here of a heightened state of emergency, everyone was quite prepared. And so now what we're seeing is moving into a new phase of war with Israel's preemptive strike on Iran, with the upgrading of the security situation, with the closing of airspace about 20 minutes ago to civilian aircraft. This has been a long time coming. When the war took place, the 12-day war in June, the sentiment here was that what occurred during those 12 days was not going to be the only confrontation with Iran, and it was more than likely that within the year there would be another sort of military confrontation, and we are seeing that today, right now.
So, Melissa, when we're speaking of this very escalation, let us understand the situation that we've been witnessing since last year itself. And as you've mentioned, the 12-day escalation was not supposed to be an isolated escalation. There were expectations of further escalations taking place in the time to come. And that is what we see is playing out. Because Israel is calling this a preemptive strike. But if we look at it, it almost looks as a proactive attack at this given point of time, because this strike can actually be a trigger point which ends up escalating matters, with Iran coming up with maybe a calibrated response or even a full-fledged war against Israel, and the US already intervening in the entire situation because of what's been panning out between Iran and US in the first place.
I mean, you can call it whatever you'd like, but it is a preemptive strike. We don't know the intelligence. You're not sitting in the Israeli Defense Ministry. I'm not sitting in the Israeli Defense Ministry. We don't know the calculations that have gone into what has occurred so far this morning. We also know that the U.S. and Israel are in lockstep. Over the last 2 months, there have been repeated trips back and forth between Washington and Jerusalem of senior Israeli and U.S. officials coordinating specifically on this issue. So while it might appear to be an attack out of nowhere to some, for anyone who has been following this for as long as I have, for as long as others in the region have, this appears to be a preemptive strike. We know that back in June, Israel also launched a preemptive strike, and that was because it was believed that Iran was days away from acquiring a weapon that it was not supposed to acquire.
So, Melissa, at this point of time, as you are in Tel Aviv, just to understand from your perspective, what do you see happening or unfolding in the next couple of hours, I would say, not even days? Is it an escalation that Israel is currently bracing for, or is it a war that Israel is prepared for? What is it that we are headed toward at this point of time?
No, I think all options are on the table. It also depends on what is struck in the initial hours of these Israeli preemptive strikes on Iran. Are they taking out rocket launchers? Are they taking out installations that are going to be used to launch attacks? That will obviously affect the degree to which Iran is able to respond or retaliate, not just to Israel, but to other U.S. interests around the region. So as of now, we're in a heightened state of alert. We will see what transpires over the next few hours, but I think it is hard to make any predictions at this moment.
Right, and when we speak of the United States, earlier when the attack had taken place in 2025, we'd seen it was the United States that had come in to intervene in the situation. It was those 3 strikes that had taken place on those 3 nuclear sites in Iran that in fact had brought the situation to a swift end at that very point of time. But this time, while there's already a tense situation between the US and Iran, we see Israel stepping in with this preemptive attack. You yourself mentioned that Israeli ministry and the US has been in consistent talking terms in terms of how are they going to deal with Iran next. What do you see or how do you see US playing a role in this escalation at this given point of time?
I mean, listen, the U.S. has scaled up its military operations, its personnel, its aircraft in the region to a degree not seen in more than 2 decades. They don't do that for no reason. The U.S. has indicated it is fully prepared to launch its own attacks on Iran to join in with Israel if it so chooses, and it has amassed enough firepower in the region to do so. The USS Gerald Ford has just reached Israel as of yesterday. That was kind of the last cog, as you could say, before things were ready to fully deploy. And so now that that aircraft carrier is here, the U.S. I think feels much more confident in moving forward with military action if it so chooses.
You know, Melissa, when the talks were underway with the United States, and it is only recently, in fact, if I were to go back, it's Donald Trump who had just come in to say yesterday that Iran had agreed to limit their nuclear program, which Iran had, of course, been denying for the longest time, because they were saying they're not, this particular nuclear program that the nuclear enrichment that they were engaged in was for civilian purposes and for other purposes, not for their military purpose at that very point of time. But Donald Trump had come in to say that the deal is still underway, the talks are still underway. At this point, with Israel coming in with this strike, doesn't this also completely derail the entire conversation that has been underway between these two sides? And maybe a possible negotiation that they were headed to has now completely been thrown off the table?
You know, I think that military action, when coupled with negotiations, is likely to bring the U.S. to a resolution that it prefers. This is not the first time in the history of warfare that some combination of diplomacy and military pressure has been used to achieve an outcome. It certainly will not be the last. But remember, in June, during the 12-day war, President Donald Trump gave Iran a 2-week warning, a 2-week deadline, and then 3 days after giving that 2-week deadline, the U.S. struck the nuclear facilities at Fordo. So I think when it comes to this region, it's less talk, more action, and it's a good idea to pay attention to what is actually happening on the ground and not the rhetoric that is coming out of Washington or Tehran or Jerusalem. I think actions speak louder than words right now.
Actions speak louder than words. That comes in as a very crucial phrase at this point of time, for sure, as we see this very preemptive attack from Israel's side.